I never meant to stay up so late watching streams, but something kept me glued to my screen that night. It was a Friday, the perfect end to a long week. I had a couple of drinks in and decided to catch up on my favourite Twitch channel, a spooky gaming streamer named Ethan. His streams often showcased horror games, complete with eerie atmospheres, but that night, things took an unexpected turn. Ethan was playing an obscure indie horror game called Whispers in the Dark. It gained a small cult following for its unsettling narrative and bizarre visual style. I'd heard whispers about it. Viewers claimed it had a unique quality, that it felt almost too real at times. I was sceptical, but as I watched, I found myself becoming entranced. As the game started, the graphics had a grainy texture reminiscent of an old VHS tape. The protagonist, a nameless character, found himself alone in a decaying house with nothing but a flashlight. It wasn't long before Ethan began to joke about the game's uncanny atmosphere, the way the shadows twisted unnaturally, and the whimpering sounds that echoed through the lonely corridors. I laughed along with him, but couldn't shake off an odd feeling. As the game progressed, I started to notice something was off. An unsettling familiarity crept into my mind. The layout of the house, the creaky floorboards, and the whispering voices in the background felt almost personal. I could have sworn I'd seen it somewhere before. Ethan's reactions were entertaining at first, but soon they began to change. His laughter faded into nervous chuckles. Occasionally, a flicker would cross his face, as if he was experiencing something just out of reach. I couldn't help but leaning closer to the screen, caught between anxiety and anticipation. "What was that?" he muttered, peering into the darkness of the game. A strange sound reverberated through my speakers, a whisper that was not part of the game. I glanced around my dimly lit room, feeling a chill I could not explain. When I turned back, Ethan was staring wide-eyed at the screen. Did you guys hear that?" he asked, breaking character for the first time. The chat exploded with comments, some calling it part of the game, while others speculated that something was wrong. But Ethan shrugged it off, attributing it to the ambience of the game. He pressed on, but I noticed the tension building in his voice, accompanied by an ever-stiffening demeanour. With each passing moment, what was once an entertaining stream began to feel increasingly dark. The game showed subtle changes. The lights would flicker occasionally, and shadows moved in the corners of the frame. At one point, the character stumbled upon a mirror hanging on the wall. The reflection stared back at him, but there was something off about it. The face looked distorted, hollow, like it didn't belong. Ethan started to sweat as the intensity of his gameplay heightened, and as the character ventured deeper into the house, he whispered under his breath, "This is getting weird," and I could only agree. The entire atmosphere felt stiffening, as if we were both in that house, breathing in the dust and the unease together, each corridor echoing with a foreboding silence. Then came the moment that stopped my heart. The character was rummaging through an old cupboard, and suddenly, the lights in Ethan's streaming room flickered. My heart raced. I glanced at my own lights, still steady. Ethan, however, jumped back from his desk, eyes wide in disbelief. Did you guys see that?" His voice crackled slightly, clearly unnerved. Kat, one of his mods, quickly typed, "It's probably just the power, Ethan. Don't panic." That was when I noticed the frame of his webcam, a darkened figure lingering in the background, half hidden in the shadows of his room. "Guys, I think someone's in my room," he said, slowly, his eyes darting off screen. The chat became a tidal wave of comments urging him to turn around, to check. I felt a chill run down my spine, every instinct screaming for me to turn off the stream. But something anchored me. It was morbid curiosity, a fear that paralysed me from disconnecting. And then, as if the virtual world and the real world were colliding, the figure stepped closer to the camera, fully illuminated by the glow of his screen. It was a silhouette of a person, unfathomably thin, ragged clothes hanging off their emaciated frame. A small twisted smile curved across their lips. They didn't look human. "Ethan, get out!" I screamed in my living room, although I knew he couldn't hear me. As the figure reached towards him, the screen cut for a chilling second, and then everything went dark. Just like that, the stream ended, leaving us with nothing but the sound of static. My heart pounded in my chest. I couldn't breathe, my mind racing through the possibilities. Some viewers began to speculate it was a prank, while others were understandably concerned. But something within me trembled with dread. I knew that figure wasn't an act. It was too real, too raw. My hand shook as I searched for his social media accounts, desperately hoping to find something, a sign that he was okay. But there was nothing. Hours passed and there was still no word from Ethan. I checked his Twitter. The last tweet was from early that morning, innocuously announcing his stream. I saw comments from his fans worried about his absence. As sleep slowly crept up on me, I made the decision to go to bed, hoping it was a simple power outage or technical failure. Surely he would update us in the morning. But as dawn broke and I awoke to glaring sunlight, dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I checked my phone immediately. One new notification. A message from a moderator saying that Ethan's account had been hacked, that all evidence of last night's stream had vanished, and they hadn't been able to reach him. Panic gripped my mind. I found myself searching deeper, watching other streams to see if anyone had captured anything, but no one had. It was as if Ethan hadn't existed in the digital space anymore. Days turned to weeks, and despair filled the void left by his absence. I retreated from streaming channels. Unsettling memories haunted me relentlessly. As I buried myself in mundane life, I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that I was being watched. Sometimes at night, I'd hear whispers, echoing just beyond my hearing range. I brushed it off as paranoia, until one night, unable to sleep, I finally caved and opened my laptop. There was a newly created channel featuring a strange title that sent chills down my spine. Whispers After Dark. I opened the stream. The screen glitched, and for the briefest moment, I saw Ethan's face, hollow and sunken, framed by the same shadows that haunted his last broadcast. The chat filled with panicked comments, but none of them could see what I did. The screen flickered again, and the figure appeared, standing in the dark behind him, whispering something that I couldn't understand. It felt like they were staring right at me, inviting me to come closer, to join his eternal suffering. I couldn't look away. My heart raced as the whispering intensified. It consumed me. I could feel the darkness pulling me in. I can't explain what happened next. In a horrible moment of recklessness, I typed into chat, "Ethan, are you there? Please reply if you can hear me." The chat exploded as people gripped their seats, begging him to respond. But he was silent. The whispers elevated, and then those familiar, distorted tones reached my ears. It was Ethan's voice, hidden beneath layers of static, calling for help, choked and broken. "Help me. I can't escape." The feed cut off abruptly, leaving only the static. I slammed my laptop shut, shaking. I knew I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. As the days stretched on, sleep deprivation and dread conquered me. My mind started to fracture. I dreamt of that figure lurking in my room, whispering my name, beckoning me to join the emptiness. I was awake, yet trapped in a nightmare. The lines between reality and the unknown smeared relentlessly. Finally, a month later, A post on Ethan's old account appeared out of nowhere. A stream scheduled for that night. As dread filled my stomach, I joined, unable to keep away. The stream loaded and darkness enveloped. But there was no Ethan. The same figure stood under the flickering lights, twisted and grotesque as they grinned unknowingly into the camera. They beckoned to the viewers, inviting everyone to enter the long-forgotten house. I felt icy fingers wrapped around me, pulling me deeper into the screen.
Join us.
Its voice echoed in the back of my mind. There's room for you in the dark. And I understood. I felt the pull. It's terrifyingly easy to linger in this emptiness. I've already lost everything. And as I sit here before my screen, trembling, a part of me knows that soon I'll answer that call. Soon I'll join them. Just one more whisper until I'm nothing but a voice. I don't know how long I can hold out for. I can feel the walls closing in, the shadows creeping closer. Ethan might have been the first, but he certainly won't be the last. That darkness isn't done with anyone who watches, and it wants me too. You must remember this. Whatever you do, don't go looking for him. The whispers in the dark can call to you just as easily. I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though I don't think I want to play any after the experience I just had. It started on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed, until I noticed, out of my peripheral vision, that the mailman had arrived and put something in the mailbox as usual and left. I paused my game to go and see what I got in the mail. The only thing there was a CD case for computers and a note. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realised it was from my dear friend Kyle, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I know that because I recognise his handwriting, though what was weird about it is how it looked. It was badly written and scratchy, somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down and done it in a hurry. This is what he wrote. Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you'd do it for me. I just can't do it. He's after me, and if you don't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc and you'll destroy him, but do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game, that's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please. Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Carl was my best friend and I haven't seen him in 2 weeks, I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple gaming disc would do anything bad to him. After all, it's just a game, right? Boy, was I wrong about that. Anyway, I looked at the disc and it looked like any ordinary computer CDR disc, except it had black marker on it, written sonic.exe. And it was nothing like Carl's handwriting, meaning he must have got it from someone else, like a pawn shop or eBay. When I saw Sonic on the right end of the CD, I was actually quite excited and wanted to play. I went up to my room and turned on my computer, put the disc in and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed it was the first Sonic game. The first thing I noticed that was out of place was when I pressed start. There was a split second when I saw the title image turn into something different, something that I now consider to be horrifying, before cutting to black. I remember what the image looked like in the split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened, the title emblem was rushed and ruined. The Sega 1991 was now instead Sega 666, and the water had turned red, like blood, except it looked hyper-realistic. But the freakiest thing was that in that split-second frame was Sonic. His eyes were pitch black and bleeding with two glowing red dots staring right at me, and his smile had stretched wider right up to the edge of his face. I was rather disturbed about the image when I saw it, though I figured it was just a glitch and soon forgot about it. After it cut to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so, and then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up, and I was like, what the fuck? What's this doing in the first Sonic game? Anyway, then I noticed something off. The background was the dark, cloudy sky of the Bad Dust Speedway level from Sonic CD, and there were only 3 save files. The music was that creepy Caverns of Winter music from Earthbound, only it was extended and seemed to be in reverse. And the image for the save file, where you see a preview of the level you're on, is just a red static for all 3 files. What freaked me out more was the character select. It showed only Tails, Knuckles, and to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now I was sure that something was up. I mean, how can you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game? That's when I realised this wasn't a glitchy game. It was a hacked game. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked. It was really creepy. But as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared. Or at least, I tried not to be. I told myself it was just a hacked game and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, shaking off the creeped out feeling, I picked file 1 and chose Tails. And when I selected and got started, the game froze for about 5 seconds, and I heard a creepy, pixelated laugh that sounded an awful lot like the Kefir guy from Final Fantasy, before cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds or more, then it showed the typical level title thing, except the simplistic shapes were different shades of red, and the text only showed Hill Act 1. The screen faded in, and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was different though. It sounded like a peaceful melody in reverse. I started playing and had Tails start running like you would in any of the classic Sonic games. What was odd was that Tails was running along the level. There was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for 5 minutes. That was when the peaceful music started to lower down into sleep deep tones, very slowly as I kept going. I suddenly saw something and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground bleeding. That was when the music started to slow down. Tails had a shocked and saddened look on his face that I never saw him have before that. So I had him moving along, and he kept that worried look on his face. As he kept moving, I saw more and more and more dead animals as Tails moved past them, looking more and more worried as the music lowers, and he moves past more and more dead animals. I was shocked to see how many had died. They looked like somebody had killed them in rather gruesome ways. A squirrel was hanged on a tree with what appeared to be his entrails hanging out. A bunny had all 4 of his limbs torn off, and a duck had his eyes gouged out and his throat slit. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there were no more animals, and the music seemed to have stopped. I still kept Tails to continue. A minute had passed after the music stopped. Tails was running up a hill, and then he stopped. It wasn't until I saw why. Sonic was there, on the other side of the screen, with his back against Tails, and with his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered, obviously noticing that Sonic wasn't responding to him, if not acting as if he was totally oblivious of Tails' presence. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, and I noticed I wasn't even moving my keyboard to make him move anymore, so this had to be some sort of cutscene. Suddenly, I began to have a growing feeling of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was about to happen. I heard a faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped and struck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger, and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. Suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open and they were black with those glowing red dots, just like the title image, though there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned black and the static sound was off. It stayed black for about 7 seconds, and then white text appeared, forming a message saying,
Hello. Do you want to play with me?
At this point, I was creeped out. I didn't want to continue with the game, but my curiosity got the better of me when I was taken to a different level, with the level title now saying,
Hide and seek.
This time, I was in the Angel level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits this time. He actually looked at me and made frantic gestures as if he wanted me to get him out of the area as fast as possible. I was starting to get freaked out by this. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, trying to tell me to get him out of there. So I pressed down on the arrow key as hard as I could and made him run as fast as he could. A pixelated version of that creepy theme when you meet Shadow at the Ark as Robotnik from Sonic Adventures 2 was playing as I made Tails trek through the desolate forest, trying to help him escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly, I heard that creepy laugh again, that awful Kefka laugh. Right after 10 seconds have passed as I helped Tails run through the forest, and then I started seeing flashes of Sonic popping everywhere on the screen, again with those black and red eyes. The music changed to that suspenseful drowning jingle as I see Sonic behind Tails slowly gaining up on him, flying. Sonic wasn't running, he was actually flying. The flying pose his sprite was making looked very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except it was just Sonic and he had the black and red eyes again. Only this time, he had the most deranged looking grin on his face. He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving the poor little fox as he gained up on him. Suddenly, when Tails tripped, the music stopped and Sonic vanished. Tails laid there and started crying for about 15 seconds. The scene was rather unsettling to watch, and I actually kinda teared up a bit. But then Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down from those blackened eyes of Sonic's as a grin slowly grew from his face as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. Just in a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails right before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that only lasted a few seconds. The text returned, only this time it said,
You're too slow. Want to try again?
And then that god-awful laugh came with it. I was so shocked by what had happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why would Sonic do that to him? I shook the shock off as I was brought back to the character select. The save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen itself, which was flickering with that red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding. His orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black again, and stayed there for another 10 seconds. This time the level said,
You can't run.
I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't really tell if this was a glitch or a hack or some kind of sick twisted joke or anything really, but despite my fear of what happened next, I kept playing. The next level looked much different. It had the ground of the scrape brain zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. It had the dark reddish cloudy sky, but it was the music that creeped me out the most. It sounded like Gilgas's theme right after you beat Pokey in Earthbound. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid, just like Tails did, though not as much. More rather, he looked a little unnerved. He broke the fourth wall just like Tails, and looked as if he wasn't sure about going on, but I made him move anyway. He ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker red static a couple of times, and then that maddening laugh came again. Then, after a few seconds of running, I noticed several bloodstains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear again, thinking something horrible was going to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated, walking down this blood-stained road, but I still kept him going. Suddenly, as Knuckles ran, Sonic appeared right in front of him with those black and red eyes, and then red static appeared again. When the static vanished, showing nothing but black screen, with text saying,
"Found you."
I was now scared. Sonic found Knuckles already? What was going on? Red static came again, and then I was back to the level. Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. And this time, that high-pitched squealing from Silent Hill 1's final boss was playing. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? I hope to God it wasn't. Suddenly, Sonic appeared right behind Knuckles in what appeared to be pixelated black smoke. I made Knuckles turn and then punch Sonic, but Sonic vanished in black pixelated smoke before I could even land a hit. That terrible laugh went off again. Then Sonic appeared behind Knuckles again, and then I made him punch again, and Sonic vanished again, laughing. Knuckles was panicking even more, and even I felt like I was going crazy. Sonic was practically playing with us. He was playing a sick, twisted little mind game with me and Knuckles. Another cutscene played, as Knuckles fell to his knees and clutched his head, sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was actually driving us both crazy. And then, in a split second, Sonic lunged at Knuckles, and the screen went black, with another distorted screeching noise that lasted for at least 3 seconds. A text box appeared.
"So many souls to play with, so little time. Would you agree?"
What the hell? Just what is going on? I started to think Sonic was actually trying to talk to me through the game, but I was too scared to think that. I was brought back to the main menu, and this time the second file box had Knuckles in the TV screen. His red fur had darkened to a reddish grey, his dreadlocks were dripping with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding too. He had a look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those are the actual characters trapped in those TV screens on the save files, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. So I shut off the game and took a break. I took a nap, wishing I hadn't, because then I began to have the most disturbing nightmare. I was in pitch black darkness, though I was under the light given off by the lamp that hung high above my head. I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us," and "Why'd you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too." Their cries died out, as then I heard Sonic laugh.
"You're a lot of fun to play with, kid. Just like your friend Kyle. Though, he didn't last as long."
I was scared, and looking around for the source of the voice.
"Won't be long now until you join him and all my other friends."
I saw him walking toward me, flickering in and out in several directions.
"You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others."
When he grabbed me, I saw his bleeding black and red eyes, grinning face, and I woke up with a fright. After a couple of hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening. So I turned on the computer, turned on the game, and selected Robotnik next. I still thought that was wacky, playing as Robotnik, but anyway, the level title appeared again, and this time it said nothing, which I found really freaky. This time I was in some kind of hallway. Didn't really look like it was from any classic Sonic game, though it had the same pixelated style. The floor was shiny and checkered. The walls were a dark greyish purple with animated candle lights and a few dark blood stains here and there. There was a dark red curtain hanging above the top part of the screen. Every 12 seconds or so, that red curtain sways very slowly, but whenever you're playing the game, you can barely see it move. The music was oddly pleasant, a piano playing a rather sad yet peaceful song, but I knew better. This was the song that played in The Hill Act 1, only it wasn't in reverse. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Knuckles did, but he did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was just a bit paranoid. He did a little animation when I left him standing. He turned his head to the left, then to the right, at least twice, and then shrugs at me, as if he has no idea where he was or what was going on. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I had Robotnik continue onward. Then I stopped at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself, though I pressed onward. As I led Robotnik down the stairs, I noticed that the walls had gotten darker and more reddish. The red torches are now an eerie blue. Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was longer than the last one, or at least it felt like that. And then we headed down another flight of stairs down. This one was much longer. It took at least a full minute. I then heard the horrid Kefka laugh again, and the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red, and the torches were a black flame now. When Robotnik landed onto the third hallway, I noticed how he now looked really creeped me out. Though he tried to hide it, I couldn't blame him. I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped right out in front of Robotnik, the same way he did Knuckles. And then, red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me a most unpleasant sight. The image was hyper-realistic of Sonic standing in the darkness, where you can only see his face while his head and torso faded into black. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean like he looks so real. You can actually see the lines in his blue fur, as if you could actually feel the fur if you touched the screen. His face, oh god. He had the most horrifying smile I had ever seen. And that's saying something considering I saw that image at the start of the game. His eyes are wide and black, and once again, crying blood. And there were two small glowing red dots in those black eyes, staring right at me, as if staring into my mind. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the sides of his face like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs. Very sharp fangs. Much like the werehog's teeth, except more vicious looking, somewhat yellowish, and from the look of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs, as if he ate some animal. I stared at that gruesome image for a good 30 seconds, never taking my eyes off it. I felt as if he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face. It just took 10 seconds for it to etch itself into my brain for good. Then the screen flickered with red static again, 3 times, and on the 3rd time I heard the Kefka laugh, except this time it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time there was the text again, although it was messed up. But it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game.
I am God.
It was when I read that message while looking at Sonic, when it hit me. I realised right there and then, this Sonic was a monster. A pure, evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster. And all of his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are just his little toys. And the game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world, and the very hell his victims are trapped in. Suddenly, in an actual split second, I screamed as Sonic lunged at the screen, screeching loudly with his mouth wide open to an unnatural length, revealing nothing but a literal spiralling abyss of pure darkness before the red static came again. This time, much louder and distorted, so loud that it hurt my ears. I yelled and grabbed my ears as the red static screeched for a good 7 seconds. Then it stopped and showed nothing but black screen. As I sat there, staring at that black screen, one last bit of text came up.
Ready for round 2, Tom?
The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear as if Sonic was right behind me, played again 3 times as I looked at the text in shock and confusion. Then I got booted back to the main menu, and this time the third save file had a TV image of Robotnik in the same tormented state as Tails and Knuckles. Robotnik's skin turned a dull grey, his moustache drooped and had blackened, his glasses broke and blood is coming from him, and he had a mere dead-like expression on his face. I looked at Tails, Knuckles and Robotnik, and I cried a bit. I pitied them for the agony they're going through. They were forever trapped within the game, forever tormented by that horrid hedgehog, and always will be. Then the computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on no matter what I did. Sat there for maybe 25 seconds, horrified by what had just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who plays his game in more ways than one. And then, when he gets bored, he drags you into the game. Literally drags you to hell, where he can play with you, always, as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I think it's stuck in there, but I at least managed to turn it back on now. After I sat there for 25 seconds, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper.
Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom.
I turned around to see where the voice came from, but what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, smiling, with bloodstains under its eyes. I had recently started a new world in single-player Minecraft. Everything was normal at first, as I began chopping down trees and crafting a workbench. I noticed something move amongst the dense fog. I had a very slow computer, so I had to play with a tiny render distance. I thought it was a cow, so I pursued it, hoping to grab some hides for armour. It wasn't a cow though. Looking back at me was another character, with the default skin, but his eyes were empty. I saw no name pop up, and I double checked to make sure I wasn't in multiplayer mode. He didn't stay long. He looked at me and quickly ran into the fog. I pursued out of curiosity, but he was gone. I continued on with the game, not sure what to think. As I expanded the world, I saw things that seemed out of place for your random map generator to make. 2x2 tunnels in the rocks, small perfect pyramids made of sand in the ocean, and grooves of trees with all their leaves cut off. I would constantly think I saw the other player in the deep fog, but I never got a better look at him. I tried increasing my render distance further whenever I thought I saw him, but it was to no avail. I saved the map and went on the forums to see if anyone else had found the pseudo player. There were none. I created my own topic telling of the man and asking if anyone had a similar experience. The post was deleted within 5 minutes. I tried again, and the topic was deleted even faster. I received a private message from username herobrine containing one word: stop. When I went to look at Herobrine's profile, the page 404'd. I received an email from another forum user. He claimed the mods can read the forum user messages and we were safer using email. The emailer claimed he had seen the mystery player too and had a small directory of other players who had seen him as well. Their worlds were littered with obviously man-made features and described their mystery player to have no pupils. About a month had passed until I heard from my informant again. Some of the people who had encountered the mystery man had looked into the name Herobrine and found the name to be frequently used by a Swedish gamer. After some further information gathering, it is revealed to be the brother of Notch, the game's developer. I personally emailed Notch and asked him if he had a brother. It took a while, but he emailed me back a very short message. I did, but he is no longer with us. I haven't seen the mystery man since our first encounter, and I haven't noticed any changes to the world other than my own. I was able to press print screen when I first saw him. Here's the only evidence of his existence.